In this video, I'm going to be counting down the top 20 metal albums of the month of March of 2024. I have a big list again. I have 20 of them, so let me jump right into it. At number 20, I have Skeletal Remains, Fragments of the Ageless. This is an old school death metal band, and the only death metal or true death metal I have on this list. For some reason, I haven't been getting into the albums from this specific genre. But this one just made the list for me because it has an old school death metal sound. For me, I think it reminded me a lot of Cannibal Corpse, mostly because of the vocals. The vocalist reminded me a lot of Corpse Grinder. This album was pretty solid. It's just filled with heavy guitar riffs and pummeling drum beats and everything you would expect from a death metal album. At number 19 is Grey Skies Fallen, Molded by Broken Hands. This is a death doom band, and I discovered them because the vocalist was on an episode of Is It That Bad with the Chill Dude on the Couch and myself. So that's how I found out about this band. I usually don't listen to this genre too much, but I like the fact that it's slow, but there's a lot of depth in the songs. They also use a lot of different instruments, such as acoustic guitars. This gives the songs more of an atmosphere. I also like the vocals because they use a combination of the harsh death growls with the cleaner vocals. It was reminiscent of classic Opeth. They also play with time signatures, and that gives it an almost progressive feel. My favorite song on the album was the last song called Knowing That You're There, just because it was a very moving and beautiful song with so much melody. Number 18 is Fall of Serenity, Open Wide, Oh Hell. This is one of the albums I did a full review for. They are listed as melodic death metal, but I found that they mixed a lot of different genres into their sound. The music is very dark, and I heard a black metal influence throughout most of the album. The songs seemed to go from one to the other very well, and they had two short instrumentals, and that helped break it up. This was one of those bands that I found by chance. I just saw the album released on the list, and I decided to listen and review it, and it made my end of the month list. At number 17, I have Leaves Eyes with Mists of Fate. I discovered this band through the Green Man channel because he interviewed the lead singer. This is a symphonic metal band. Their sound was very similar to bands like Nightwish or Epica, probably a little closer to Epica because they had the contrast between the operatic female vocals and the harsh death growls of the male vocals. This band writes songs that are all based on Norse mythology. Every song focuses on a different character, whether it's Thor's hammer or any of the other characters that are not as popular. This is the type of band where you can read the lyrics and learn a lot. They also have 5 music videos for the first 5 songs, and they are very well done. They almost look like these mini movies that are shot in these beautiful locations, and that helps tell the story of the music. So I like this album, and I have it at number 17. At number 16, I have The Wizards with The Exit Garden. This is another band I discovered by chance. They fall under many different categories, whether it's doom metal, stoner metal, or just heavy metal or rock. To me, they had a very 1970s hard rock and heavy metal type of sound. You can hear a Black Sabbath influence, but they didn't go out of their way to sound exactly like them. There were other influences as well, such as Blue Oyster Cult and early Judas Priest. This band is from Spain, and the album was solid. They had lots of psychedelic guitar riffs, and they released a music video for the song Oniros, which was very trippy and strange. I thought it was good. I think if you're into those retro-sounding bands such as Lucifer or anything else of that nature, I think this would be a good album to check out. At number 15, I have Hammer King with König und Kaiser. This is a power metal band, and I know they have a large following, but this was my first time listening to them, and they reminded me a lot of the band Hammerfall. It was that style of epic power metal with the fantasy lyrics and all of that. The songs had a very fast-paced drum beats. There were lots of power metal style guitar riffs. The vocals reminded me of the vocalist from the band Hammerfall. The lyrics were all fantasy-based. They mentioned things like kings, monsters, hammers, and the Holy Grail, and that's just the first song. There were times when the guitar riffs got very heavy and had more of a traditional heavy metal or speed metal sound. There were other times that the guitars had more of an Iron Maiden type of sound. I could tell that they were going for a big and epic sound. For that reason, I have it at number 15. Number 14, I have Bruce Dickinson with the Mandrake Project. I don't need to say much about this. I already did a full review and a ranking, so this would be my third mention of it. I still think it's pretty good, but You will notice it's only at number 14, so there were many better albums, but it deserved a mention. This came out it came out back in March 1st. It feels like it's been out for so long now. The album has held up pretty well after 30 days. My favorite song is still Afterglow of Ragnarok, Many Doors to Hell, and Rain on the Graves. Those are my favorites. But I also think Mistress of Mercy has grown on me a lot and is probably like the best deep cut. At number 13 is The End Machine with the Quantum Phase. This album came out in the second week of March, and it still holds up pretty well. The band has ex-Dokken members George Lynch and Jeff Pilson, with 2 new members, Steve Brown on drums, who played with Tesla, and he was the drummer of the original drummer Mick Brown, who was in Dokken, and they have a new vocalist named Girish Pradhan, who has a band called Girish and the Chronicles, and he was also on Joel Hoaxer's 13 album from last year. This is melodic hard rock. The vocalist Girish has a sound that brings back classic 80s glam metal. I thought this album held up very well. Songs have a very 80s glam metal feel, and this one is, it just brings back that retro sound, so that's why I like it. Yeah. At number 12 is Midnight with Hellish Expectations. This is a one-man blackened speed metal band that makes music that sounds like a cross between Venom and Motorhead. This is the second album that I reviewed from this band. It's a short album. It's only 25 minutes long. There are 10 songs. All the songs are between 2 and 3 minutes long, and it's just one of those albums that's very fun. It's a good album to listen to if you're doing some type of exercise. Just listen to it from start to finish. It's very energetic. It sounds like speed metal, but has vocals that sound like black metal and lyrics that are very dark. Pretty much, it's just a fun ride for 25 minutes, not the kind of thing you take too seriously. You just put it on, you have some fun, and that's why I have it at number 12. At number 11, I have Boundaries with Death Is a Little More. This album just came out this weekend, and I did a full review of it, so I don't need to speak too long about it. Probably the heaviest album on this entire list. This band brings back that classic metalcore sound from the late 90s, where the dominant genre is hardcore. The album is very angry, the vocals are very harsh, but there are also some clean vocals as well, but they're not overused. The guitar riffs are very brutal and crushing. This is another album where the songs are short and to the point. The album is only about 33 minutes long, but it hits really hard. So if you like it heavy, this is probably the heaviest thing I have on this list. At number 10, I had Ministry with Hopium for the Masses. This album has held up pretty well. I think as a negative, there's too much wokeness or left-leaning politics in the lyrics, but as a positive, I think it's a pretty decent album. I like the mixing on this album. It's a good album to listen to with headphones. They put lots of things in the left and right channels, so it's a different experience than just listening to it on normal speakers. I think the weakest songs were the singles. They were kind of repetitive. But if you deep dive into the album, you can find some pretty good deep cuts. So it's not the best Ministry album, but I think it held up pretty well. And number 9 is Early Moods with A Sinner's Past. This is a band I discovered by chance. They play doom metal in the style of those early bands like Black Sabbath, Pentagram, Saint Vitus, Trouble, like those bands. It's the kind of doom that I like. It's just very heavy guitar riffs and dark lyrics. The album has a very full sound with a deep low end. Sounds like it was recorded sometime in the 70s. I also like that the music is not too slow. It moves at a respectable pace, but it's slow enough that the guitars create these dark and heavy melodies, and the vocals are reminiscent of the aforementioned bands. I think of a mix of between like Ozzy and Messiah from Candlemass. This was one of those albums that I found just by chance, and I have it at number 9. At number 8, I have Ecclesia with Ecclesia Militans. I discovered this band through Hammerheart Metal Reviews. He did a full review of this album. There's also doom metal, but it has a different sound than Early Moods. They mix in these eerie church music. There's lots of lyrics in Latin. They incorporate sound clips from old Vincent Price movies. The music is not always slow. Sometimes they can move a little fast. The vocals are also sung in a higher range than a typical doom band. The music is super catchy. I think you can compare them to Ghost at times, where the sound is kind of distributed between the guitars and the keyboards. A lot of lyrics are centered around religion. Some songs have slower rhythms, and at times the keyboards are the more dominant instrument. But overall, I thought this was a nice surprise. And number 6 is Sum 41, Heaven X Hell. I just reviewed this album, but it made the list. It's pretty solid. Not really a metal album, but the idea behind it was to create a combination of a pop, punk, and metal, so I'm including it on this list. It's a double album, but it's only 55 minutes long, and it has 20 songs, so the songs are fairly short. The first side is the Heaven side with a pop-punk sound. Some of the songs were reminiscent of classic Sum 41. I also heard some influence from both The Offspring and Blink-182. The second side had the heavier songs. It was still pop-punk, but they had more heavier aspects to them. I felt this was more like Linkin Park or those 2000s bands. It was not too bad, so for that reason, I have it right here. At number 5, I have Sonata Arctica with Clear Cold Beyond. This is a power metal band that I have not really listened to before. A lot of people are saying that it's their best album in a long time. It's some fun, happy, upbeat power metal with melodic guitars and vocals and very fast drum beats. I like this album because it sounds very upbeat and happy. Some of the lyrics are pretty dark. For example, the song California is about California falling into the sea, and they sing that over and over in the chorus. There's a song called Dark Empath, which sounded like a Nightwish type of song, minus the female vocals. I think that would be a really great song for a symphonic metal band to cover. There's also A Monster Only You Can See, a softer song. That's kind of like this folk rock type of sound, but it has some interesting lyrics, and they keep dropping the word asshole like throughout the song. I thought that was funny, being that it was like a happy and upbeat song. So this was pretty good. I didn't do a full review of it, but I like it. I have it high on my list. At number 5, I have Lords of Black with Mechanics of Predacity. This is another band with Ronnie Romero, who seems to be in so many different bands these days. If you don't know him, he was in the band Rainbow with Richie Blackmore. I believe he recently left the band. He has a very big voice. He can be compared to like Ronnie James Dio. This album is just some epic traditional heavy metal. I liked it more than I thought I would. The songs have lots of variety throughout the album. Some songs have the big vocals and heavy guitar riffs with fast-paced drums. Every song seems to have its own personality. Some songs are very heavy and they sound like speed metal. Other songs are more atmospheric and use keyboards and acoustic guitars. They also incorporate some Middle Eastern guitar riffs in some songs. Other times they have the guitars and the keyboards and they balance each other out, and sometimes the bass guitar stands out. And there were other songs that mixed in these softer rock piano sounds and sounded more like traditional metals, such as like Judas Priest. One of my favorite songs was called A World That's Departed. This was an 11-minute song, kind of reminded me of like a modern Iron Maiden song. Has lots of prog rock elements. So overall, this one surprised me. I didn't review it, but it's a very good album. At number 4, I have Atrophy with Asylum. This is an old school thrash band that decided to make an album 34 years after the last one. I did a full review of this, and the video did surprisingly very well. It got over 1,000 views. The album sounds like it was recorded back in the late 80s. Has an old school sound. I would compare this band to Testament, as the vocalist can sound like Chuck Billy at times. This also sounds like the songs were written 35 years ago, because they talk about topics that thrash bands used to talk about, like corruption, religion, politics, and things like that. You can hear the song lyrics very well when you listen to the songs. The album has a very good production value as well. You can hear the guitars and bass very clearly, and the vocals are mixed just right, or at least to my ears they were. The album has 9 songs, and they were all thrashers. And number 3 is Suicidal Angels with Profane Prayer. This is a thrash band from Greece, but they're part of the new generation of thrash bands. They have a sound that mixes the speed and aggression of bands like Slayer and Creator, but the songs also have lots of peaks and valleys, as they like to incorporate slower and more atmospheric sections in their sound. I thought the guitar riffs reminded me of Creator from their Hordes of Chaos album. The vocals were more like Slayer with this heavy shouting style. The album has lots of different layers. Some songs are more technical, other songs are more melodic. Sometimes the songs move at breakneck speeds, other times they're playing softer sections with acoustic guitars. Another album, it's a perfect length, 9 songs, 45 minutes. Some of the songs were long, like 8 or 9 minutes, but the album did not have any weak moments. This is also my #1 thrash album of 2024 so far, but let's see what the future holds. At #2, I have Exhorder with Defectum, Omnium. Another band that was inactive for a long time. They had 2 albums in the early 90s and they made a comeback in 2019. This is one of the first groove metal bands that came out around the same time as Pantera when they were changing their sound with their Cowboys album. It can be argued that Pantera even learned their style from this band. I like this album. It has lots of different styles in the songs. I saw a clip of an interview of the vocalist who said he wanted to make an album where every song was different the way the Beatles or Led Zeppelin used to make their albums. So on this album you get some fast and heavy groove metal, then there's some thrash, there's some slower and heavier songs. For example, the song Tale of Unsound Mind has a very sludgy sound similar to a band like Crowbar. And then you could take a song like Forever and Beyond Despair. It sounds more like hardcore. This album surprised me. It was much better than I expected. My #1 album is Judas Priest, Invincible Shield. And you're probably thinking, this is so obvious. I'm putting Judas Priest at #1. And it's just because it was the best album this month, in my opinion. When it first came out, I thought it was just on par with Firepower. I wasn't completely blown away, but I have been listening to it non-stop since it came out. It just has a really good replay value. I think it's possibly their best album since Painkiller. And the album just is really good. It has held up very well. Even the singles, I've heard them so many times. I haven't gotten tired of listening to the singles. But my favorite deep cuts would be Giants in the Sky and the bonus track at the end called The Lodger. So I think this album will be remembered in years to come. And that is all. Let me know in the comments if I missed anything. There were a lot of albums that I didn't have time to listen to. Others I did not like as much. Put your lists in the comments. Check out this playlist here with full reviews to many of the albums appearing on this list. Please like this video. It helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Please subscribe if you're not already. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next one.